Disruptive FM, the podcast that talks business in the era of the startup economy. The show Fox Business Network, CNBC, or Bloomberg wouldn't dare to replicate. We talk digital trends, social media technology, disruptive innovation, and digital transformation. Broadcasting from Seattle on the worldwide mobile web. Listen to us weekly. Download the Spreaker application today at the App Store or on Google Play. And follow us on Twitter at Disruptive FM.
You give us 22 minutes, we give you the business, or I should say tech business world, live and direct from Las Vegas Collision Conference. I'm your host, Jeff Colon, with a special edition of Disruptive FM, the show that talks business in the era of the startup economy. So we're live from the desert. We are surrounded by 500 startups that have all traveled far to be here. Over 50 countries represented in a variety of different areas of the startup economy, which is interesting. When people say startup, they always have a thinking that it's just this, it's just a random company that doesn't follow the rules and is digital. But as we can attest to being here in Vegas this week, there's a lot of different sectors where these businesses live, from big data to developers to APIs to education, enterprise, entertainment, finance, health, lifestyle, machine learning, marketing, philanthropy, social media, travel, and e-commerce. It's all here. We'll talk a little bit about some of the companies that I hope to see some demos from. And of course, if you are looking for me to come by your booth and you want to see a demo, hit me on Twitter at DJGEOFFE or at Disruptive FM. And of course, all the conversations that you are having on Twitter, make sure that you mark them with hashtag CollisionConf or hashtag DisruptiveFM. Well, I just arrived from Seattle yesterday and got to business right away. Got to meet a lot of different people, met a lot of really interesting businesses from around the world. From places that I wouldn't expect, where startup culture is actually thriving. So the myth that's perpetrated usually from the West Coast is that you can only make it if you're in Silicon Valley or some of the other tech sectors. But I've met people far and wide from places like Nashville, Tennessee, Columbus, Ohio, Bangalore, India, Monterrey, Mexico, Tel Aviv, Israel. They're all here. And it's very, very exciting. So, a few of the areas that I definitely want to highlight, and we'll be recording a couple of different shows while we're here at the conference. But I wanted to call attention to a couple of the companies that I saw that I think might be really, really interesting in terms of their sort of disruptive nature, or their added nature, their added value nature, what they can actually add to the business sector. And so the three areas that I definitely am interested in, I'm definitely interested in big data, how some of those companies are using it, what they're going to be doing with it, how they can help enable other businesses. The education sector, we talk quite a bit about that all the time, and how there is a need for that to be disrupted. Because I was actually thinking of something the other day as a parent of a 5-year-old who has a kindergartner. What happens if I move again? So let's think about this for a second. I lived in New York City for 17 years, and I was in Brooklyn for much of that time, and I loved it. Park Slope represent. But of course, I had children, which I adore, Shout out to my daughters, Olive and Matilda. And my wife and I decided, hey, let's buy a place just outside the city in what we call West Brooklyn, Maplewood, New Jersey. For those who don't know about it, check it out. Wonderful place to actually raise a family. And we were there for about 3 years prior to getting a call from Microsoft asking, hey, do you want to move out here to the lovely city of Seattle and work on a couple of different platforms as we sort of transform our business? And why not? Life is short. May as well, take the plunge, so to speak. That's what the leap of faith is all about. But we moved from one coast to the other. And of course, my kids weren't in school yet. But what happens if I move again? What happens if somebody says to me, hey, we want you in this other part of the country or the other part of the world. How do my kids stay up on education? So I'm curious to know if there's any startups out there that have sort of a business model, so to speak, where they're actually trying to, allow people to stay up to date on their lessons. So they regardless of where they move, they can stay sort of in sync with what's going on in their educational world. Because we're going to see more of this. This is not going to stop. More and more people are going to move constantly. For those who've never read the book Future Shock by Alvin Toffler, that's just part of the new sort of economy that we're in, which is another reason why I think we'll actually see less home ownership. Why buy something if you don't know how long you're going to be in that particular market before you go elsewhere? And that's definitely a big thing, I think, if you're in the software industry or part of the creative class. There's just less of that need for setting roots down because there is not necessarily one factory that exists that you're going to stay for a long period of time. So if anybody knows about it, hit me up on Twitter. Curious to know if anyone offers sort of an education startup that works with that business model that has sort of all the lesson plans based on sort of the state and educational requirements, and then you can, if you move, you can stay up to date by sort of doing lessons online. So let's look at the big data sector. A couple of really interesting companies. One that caught my attention, definitely going to check them out. Big shout out to them. Foosye, interesting name, Foosye. And the reason this one stuck out for me in terms of a big data platform is they're a global big data platform that's going to modernize the food truck industry. And of course, as a person from Brooklyn and living in Seattle now and having traveled quite a bit to Portland and San Francisco, the food truck industry is basically the new economy in many of these cities. I'm very curious as to what data they provide to the food truck industry and how they enable that small business sector, which is a growing one, of course. And they're based out of North Carolina, so check them out. Quite interesting to see what they might have to offer. There's 3 companies in the education sector that I'm really fascinated by here at Collision Conference. One is what is the one? One has a really cool name. They're called Brain Factory. Who doesn't want to go visit a company called Brain Factory? I think they're based out of Germany. I'm trying to figure out a little bit more of what their model is, but it looks like they... let's see here. Hold on a second, everyone. I apologize but we are coming live here, so it's a little bit less constructed than the normal shows. But it looks like they are... Well, I'll have to figure out a little bit more about some of the things that they offer. Oh, here we go. So they build a learning ecosystem to help students, teachers, publishers, and other organizations to digitize learning processes and content. Curious to hear more about what they have to offer. They're at the booth number D219 if you want to check them out. There's another company I find really interesting because, again, based on their name here in the education sector, called Cool Junk. Now, they're based out of India, and what really caught my attention is they really are on the edge when it comes to the maker economy that we're in. They help younger people construct things. So they learn sort of to build things beyond, let's say, Lego culture, things that are actually operational and electrical, etc. And they have a variety of different toolkits, etc. I'm really interested in seeing some more about that, especially since I have young kids and they're fascinated with building things. And then the final startup in the education sector that I think is interesting is this company called Neuro. And the reason that I'm fascinated with this is they provide interactive video P2P that is helps engage large groups of people face-to-face online from any device from anywhere in the world. Now, I've been a huge proponent of video P2P going back to almost 2010, 2011, when consulting for IBM. I said, hey, you need a video P2P solution so that you can actually have some of your salespeople talking so they can see the person they're actually talking to rather than having a phone call. There's mannerisms, there's ways that people connect when they're actually can see each other. And of course, I think that's a huge area that education definitely needs to adopt. It's not just a matter of watching an on-demand video, but of watching something where you can actually relate to everybody else who happens to be in the room or somewhere else in the world. So interesting. They're at stand number D274. The other section, of course, that I'm going to be, the other two areas that I'm definitely going to be concentrating on, the entertainment sector, because of course it's been disrupted time and time again, and the business model's constantly changing there. And then finance, because again, living in New York City for a really long time, the banking model is so antiquated in some respects. It's almost begging to be disrupted by many companies. But in the entertainment sector, we have a company that is really interesting in some respects. I'm sort of fascinated by this. They're called Overdog. It's a platform built directly into the Xbox One, which of course is owned by Microsoft. Disclaimer: my employer. Overdog helps you game with people who share your same interests in sports, music, movies, and more. Now, the interesting reason that I find this unique, and it's not unique to me because it's integrated with Xbox One. I'm not really a gamer myself. But it moves into the interest graph. So no longer is it about the people that you play important. It's really or I should say, it's not just the games themselves that are important. It's actually the people that you play. And this is actually interesting because it reminds me of an old story from a good old friend of mine, Eric Dutt, who unfortunately is no longer with us, passed away 5 or 6 years ago. He was a huge gamer, and I remember him telling me, hey, I know all my gamer friends. I didn't know them initially, but we made good alliances over time just because he was a very social person. And I don't think there's anything interesting about playing with anonymous people anymore. Social platforms have changed all of that. We don't want to just play with people who hey, yeah, there's a person that I play online games with, but we don't really know what they're also interested in. So this allows us actually to, helps you game with people who share the same interests, so to speak. So I think it's interesting when you can game with someone who, might be a similar sports fan or be into the same music or movies or books as you. So check them out. They're at stand number S119. They're called Overdog. And then in the finance sector, and there's a ton here, and I'll probably be busy the rest of the afternoon here on Tuesday while we're here. This one really stuck out to me. There's a lot of finance startups that are here, many that tie into the cryptocurrency area or sector of the business world. There's also a lot of apps that help you sort of maintain your finances. And we see many of those in this sort of crowded space. But there's one that I think that I'm fascinated with, because I myself have someone that I use who's my investment counselor or my financial advisor. And this company is called Warren. And it is the first platform ever that is going to turn anyone into their own financial advisor. I actually am fascinated by this because I'm very much into wanting to know really more about investment, because I do have a financial advisor, and of course I'm fascinated with what he does with my investments, but I want to see also, how do I become sort of more of my own investor, cut out that middle person, so to speak. So very disruptive in the sense that, again, how do you cut out the middle person and really become the knowledge expert in areas that you may not necessarily have interest in? Again, we live in an abundance economy. I've been saying this quite a bit for the last couple of months. It's just that the wealth is not necessarily evenly distributed. Knowledge is, though, and we're going to share that much more and more, and that is what's going to, again, continue the economy to sort of move into these disruptive, transformational areas where that knowledge can be shared with anyone, and anyone can become sort of an expert over time. Anyone can learn to code, learn a new language, learn information. Hopefully we can learn how to actually solve some of the biggest problems in the world as a result of this abundance of information. But interesting here in terms of what the platform for Warren is. They're at stand number E126 if you want to drop by and say hello to them. Again, anyone who is going to visit any of the platforms that I did give a shout out to, let them know that you heard about them listening to the Disruptive FM podcast. And of course, we will be dropping by a little bit later this afternoon with some with version 2, I should say, 2.0 of the podcast. We'll be doing a couple of these here from Collision Conference. So make sure you continue to engage on Twitter, hashtag CollisionConf or hashtag Disruptive FM. This afternoon, I am at the Brand X events, which I was invited here for. So I'll be at the Brand X lunch, and then the round tables for much of the afternoon. So if there's anything interesting that you see out there, if you've listened to the show and you want to let people know about it, make sure you share that information with us, and hopefully I get to meet you while you're here. And if not, let's continue to engage on all the social platforms that are out there, specifically Twitter. I'm at DJGEOFFE, and this is Disruptive FM.
Disruptive FM, the podcast that talks business in the era of the startup economy. The show Fox Business Network, CNBC, or Bloomberg wouldn't dare to replicate. We talk digital trends, social media technology, disruptive innovation, and digital transformation. Broadcasting from Seattle on the worldwide mobile web. Listen to us weekly. Download the Spreaker application today at the App Store or on Google Play. And follow us on Twitter at Disruptive FM.
That's it for day 1, version 1. We'll be broadcasting again, version 2, a little bit later this afternoon. Enjoy your time here at Collision Conference. Speak to you soon.